Saturday at 1 Eastern, so 10 in the morning. Brett Bielema's now coaching Illinois, so that'll be interesting. So Lovie Smith ended up going. He's back in the NFL. I think he's in Houston now doing some coaching. All right, Joy Taylor with the news.
No.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, we do calms right, calm is wrong a lot. I feel like sometimes teams probably need to pay more attention to that.
Why is that?
I think we've just been calling this Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid situation, Philadelphia situation for just a while.
Yeah, like 2 years. We've been on this for 2 years.
Well, the relationship between Ben Simmons and the Sixers doesn't appear to have gotten any better over the offseason. The NBA training camps are set to begin on September 28th, which is a little over a month from now. And the latest report from an anonymous scout is that Simmons would consider not showing up to training camp if Philly has not traded him by then.
Listen, it's always the same. The minute your stars don't work, quietly get on the phone and move them. The longer it lasts, the less you're going to get. Now, Daryl Morey, and I think a lot of this is public, I want an all-star, I want picks. You're not going to get that after that playoff performance. Like, you're out of getting Dame for Ben Simmons. Like, that, it's over.
Right, and now that he is obviously unhappy and he's going to force his hand, everyone's stuck. So all the leverage for these trades are gone. Now, look, I get it. GMs are afraid of the backlash from fans if it feels premature. But, you talk about this sometimes. Sometimes in the immediate you're going to be wrong. You have an opinion about something and you're going to be wrong.
Initially
for a certain amount of time, and people are going to comment you and tweet at you and, make memes about it. And then, but over time, you will end up being right. And all those people that were yelling and screaming will forget that they were on your head when you initially said it.
Yeah.
This is one of those situations where maybe the fan base might have reacted, NBA media might have freaked out, but in the long run, you would have ended up being right. Because if you had moved him when you still had the leverage, you could have gotten a lot for him because his value was still high.
And it's also,
there was still a mystery about him.
Indifference is something that doesn't wear well. Like, if Ben Simmons' shooting issues 2 years ago, you can talk yourself into, I got a good shooting coach.
Right.
But once now you've seen his indifference, which has been a knock on him since college, a lot, that's scary. It was always the Jay Cutler thing. Jay Cutler was super talented, but there was an indifference about Jay Cutler. And like the more you saw of Jay, the more teams were like, out. Drew Lock, I get a little bit of this. Doesn't play with a ton of urgency. Too cool for school. Like, that, the more you see of Ben, the less I'm willing to give for him.
But unlike Jay Cutler and Drew Lock, Ben is elite at something. He is an elite defender.
And passer.
Yes, but definitely defender. Like, you cannot argue that he is one of the top defenders in the league. So you can't build an organization around him, but he does have value still.
I still contend the obvious fit is Portland. Because Dame is a small, poor defender. Dame's just what Dame is along with Steph Curry, the best clutch shooter in basketball, period. He and Kevin Durant, Steph and Clay. But Dame is a smaller athlete. He's not a great defender. He can be a liability if you have a bigger guard. So, Ben wouldn't be a guard, but the culture is set in Portland. It's a very good culture with Dame. CJ McCollum is a duplication of Dame. He's also, because CJ McCollum is a shooter, right? He doesn't drive. Don't worry about him driving the basket. He'll play great with Embiid and Curry and Tobias Harris. So, and everybody says, well, the ceiling for Ben Simmons, nobody wants to hear about that anymore because the floor's too low.
Right.
So to me, CJ McCollum and a draft pick, maybe Robert Covington, whatever. But Ben Simmons is what Portland needs. A large wing player who can defend. By the way, don't forget this. Simmons averages about 18 a game. It's not
like he doesn't score.
He scores at the rim. And by the way, Portland's already gotten rid of Enes Kanter and Zach Collins, which tells you, are they clearing space? Because I think you can't be a center-dominant offense. Not that Portland's center-dominant, but you can't with Ben Simmons. He needs the lane free to drive and score at the rim and gain his confidence back.
And Dame does give him that.
Yep.
So Tom Brady has said for years he wants to play in the NFL until he's 45.
Yeah.
He just turned 44, but as he inches closer to that original goal, he won't set a firm timeline for his retirement. He told Peter King, I'll know when the time is right. If I'm not a championship-level quarterback, then I'm not going to play. If I'm a liability to the team, no way. But if I think I can win a championship, then I'll play.
He should this year.
Fox Bet has set the over-under at 2.5 more seasons for Brady, and he is favored to call it a career sooner rather than later, with the under at -150.
Well,
I don't put anything into when Tom Brady is going to retire. He will let us know when he's going to retire.
He's got a couple big advantages. This offensive line, their two best offensive linemen, Ali Marpet and Tristan Wirfs, got a lot of years left. So he's got two very good offensive linemen, and they're going to be around for a while. It's not like the Colts situation where their left tackle was getting old, and it's like, okay, now we got to figure out left tackle again. So their offensive line, Tristan Wirfs was a home run. So the offensive line, which Tom, as we know, that's a big deal for Tom.
Right.
And I also think they have some flexibility. Even though we see a lot of these big contracts, they still have a lot of young players and flexibility. I think they have the ability to eventually move one of their receivers and get something.
They're very deep at receiver.
Yeah, so this roster is deep enough that if they get into a situation where, listen, we need to help Tom on the O-line, we need to. It's going to be. They are really well run from a personnel standpoint. They've got a lot of options here. And my takeaway is 2 more years of Tom. That feels right to me.
Well, you don't have to ask Tom to do a whole lot. He doesn't need to be a mobile quarterback because the offensive line is bad. He doesn't have to make all these extra twirl around plays like Russell Wilson because he is so deep at receiver and tight end, and he has time. So he's in the perfect situation for a quarterback of his style and of his age, because now most of what he does can be cerebral. He doesn't need to be an all world-class athlete, which I've always felt like the Tom Brady's not athletic thing is a little overblown.
Yeah. Like,
he's clearly an athlete, and you just guys want to relax on that, like while you're picking the lint out of your belly button, talking about Tom Brady's not an athlete. We get it. He didn't look great at the combine. His body's changed a little bit since then.
Yeah.
But I do think that he is an outlier. We talk about this, and Derek Carr wants to play till he's 45, and Russell Wilson is planning on playing for a long time. I think there will be 1 to 2, 3 older guys in the league that can still contribute in the way that they are and play at a high level because of what they have around them. But I do still think it's the NFL. It's going to be the norm to not play until you're 45. Right. He's a little bit of an outlier there. So Justin Fields will be getting his first start for the Bears in their final preseason game against the Titans on Saturday. Matt Nagy says he expects Fields to stay in for about 2 quarters of the game. So he'll play the first half. He also knows that Fields is ahead of where the team projected he would be before training camp. But Andy Dalton, who will sit the final preseason game, is still going to be the starter week 1.
All right. I'm fine with that.
I think each of these situations is different. We kind of lump all these quarterback battles together, and they're all very different. The Saints are not in the same situation as the Bears, who are in the same situation as the Niners, or the same situation as the Jags. They're all very different situations, and who knows what's going on with the Eagles. I think with this situation, similar to what Channing was talking about, Justin can make plays with his legs. We've seen a lot of that in the preseason.
Yeah.
So maybe he isn't, proficient in NFL defenses the way that Andy Dalton is, although I would probably argue that he's not proficient. He's just seen them.
Yeah.
Andy's going to give you the best chance to win now because he has the most experience.
He'll make fewer mistakes.
Make fewer mistakes.
Right.
The problem with Andy Dalton as the starter, in my opinion, is that the Bears are in a situation where the GM and the coach are coaching for their jobs.
Yes.
And whenever you as an organization put a coach in that position, you are essentially saying you have to win now. Therefore, eliminating that coach's natural ability to plan for the future of your organization.
Right.
That is human nature.
Yeah.
You're not just going to make sacrifices that could potentially put your job and your family in jeopardy, like moving and having to go to another town and start a new job and all those things. You're not going to do that. You're going to... It's self-preservation.
Right.
Anyone would do that. So I'm not judging them for doing that. I'm just saying as an organization, if you draft a young quarterback, you should put the coach in a situation where he feels comfortable so that he can make the best decisions for that young quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, whether you keep that coach or not, you can decide after that year. So maybe you have to pay him. But guess what? It costs money to be successful. You gotta invest in yourself.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going to draft a young quarterback, if you don't necessarily know if the coach that you have is the right guy, you should extend him anyway so that he makes the best decisions for the team moving forward. And that's not the situation with Chicago right now.
It's not. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping